Okay.
Well, good deal. Well, Coach, thank you for joining us. And by the way, everyone, we have a very special guest today, Coach John Beam, who's the head football coach and athletic director at Laney College and one of the current stars of the new season of Last Chance U on Netflix. He joins us on the Unity is Community podcast. And Coach, I think it's fitting. And those of you who haven't seen the show yet, and I'm not quite done yet, I'm working my way through it. But John, you're all about community, and you talk so much about that in the show. What does community mean to you?
Family, right? It's who we are. We are all blended together. I kind of think of it as a quilt. We're all pieces of that quilt, and we're different, right? A quilt is, just patches that you find, sometimes discarded, right? Some are treasured pieces, and you put it together and you sew it into this phenomenal piece of art. And that's what I think community is.
I don't think I've ever heard it phrased that way, where it's a piece of art. How did you come up with that definition of community, or it's just what you feel?
So you see me at these athletic conventions, right?
Yep.
You go to Tahoe and you see me there, and you probably see me at other places. And I like to point out to everybody there that I'm not them. I'm not a suit. Those guys are all suits, right? That's not who I am. You see, I wear shorts. I got my flip-flops. I could care less about anything, right? But it's about people. And I have a master's degree and all of that. And but sometimes we overthink it, so I don't have a book reason to come up with what community is or any of that stuff. It's what you feel and what you do every day. But also, I'm an observer. I like to look at things, right, and talk to people. When you put together a community like Oakland and you just see the diversity of it all, it starts to make you think about it. And then my wife, who's just a phenomenal human being, she likes to quilt, right? So I watch her pick pieces up, and her and my oldest daughter made this beautiful quilt for my granddaughter, right? And I watched how they picked the different pieces that meant something to them in our lives to put this together, and it just made sense. That's what community is to me.
Yeah, I mean it's so important to make a positive impact, and you've made a tremendous impact in the city of Oakland. Of course, not only being a coach, but just being a good person within a community, and then obviously helping out how many, I don't know how many kids, thousands of kids throughout the course of your tenure there, and getting them off to the next level, improving their lives more importantly, and helping them to understand there's more out there, and we can help you get there if you want. And by the way, Coach, I love your coaching style. I'm sure some people giving you crap over the years, but for me, you're the type of coach that would have motivated me. Now, I would have gotten ticked off too, like a lot of your players, but I always like to coach getting on me a little bit, because I felt that was motivation. And to see your coaching style for me is very inspiring.
Well, it's who I am too, right? I want to be a guy. I was a guy that was, challenged growing up, like I wasn't the best athlete maybe. So I had to, make myself better than everybody else. And so I was doubted at times, but I wanted to be pushed. The other piece is that sometimes people need tough love, right? What I tell people is that I started teaching junior high, and junior high kids are they're not the cute elementary school, and they're not the more sophisticated high school. So junior high, they're trying to figure out what they're doing. Well, they need boundaries. And I'll tell you what, kids want discipline, and they want it to be fair discipline, whatever that is. And so you give it to them, right? This is the line. If you cross the line, there's a consequence, right? So I talk to our guys all the time about choices. You get to make choices every day. But once you make a choice, then I have to make a choice as a head coach. And so sometimes those choices we all smile and are happy about. Sometimes the choices are not so good. So in the show, some guys were moved from the team. Some did suspensions, right? And they crossed a line. And so there was a consequence to it. And I think it's real clear. I think that what they don't want is people having different standards for different people, right? Or one day the standard is this and the next day it's that. Well, they get confused. So I want to cut the confusion out.
So Coach, what I want to do, I'm gonna go back a little bit. So I'm gonna go back through your athletic career, on through the coaching career, and then I want to, and all the lives you've been able to impact, and then we can finish up with LastChanceU, how that came about, the experience there, a lot of the opportunities that presented itself from that. So let's start with this. And wait a minute, before we get into this, I need to list this stuff off, because there's a list of accomplishments here that are insane. Okay, so 15 league championships in 17 years at Skyline. Is that correct, Coach?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So 11 CIF section championships in 17 seasons. 2004 Coach of the Year, and I think that was a national award. You got the 1997 State Coach of the Year, and let's point this out as well. So having all that success in high school, and then moving on to the collegiate level, and then ultimately winning the state championship, which in turn turns into a national championship. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know who John Beam is, you're welcome for getting to know him, obviously, on the show, because the show is amazing. And if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's live right now on Netflix. But these accomplishments, some people can be good in one area, Coach, or like they could be a good high school coach. But a lot of times that doesn't translate to the collegiate level. And before we get into your athletic career, how are you able to make that change in levels and be highly successful at it?
Well, football's football, right? It's blocking and tackling. It's teaching kids the fundamentals, and then, helping them to learn how to execute. That's number one.
Oh, there we go. The video froze for a minute. So you were talking about coaching football is coaching football.
Yeah, I mean, people told me what I did in high school wouldn't work in college, and it did, obviously, right? The same schemes that run, the same philosophies. There's been tweaks, obviously, but you would tweak anyways, right? Because that's what you do. But I think surrounding yourself with good people. So if you look at the staff I have at Laney, right? So Derek Gardner, who's featured in the show, he played DB for me at Skyline, and then went on to play at Cal, play for the Falcons. Donald Deco, my safeties coach, special teams coordinator, right? Played for me at Skyline, went on to Utah State. Kevin Evans played for me at Skyline. Casey Adams graduated from Skyline. Adam Robinson graduated from Laney. So I tried, even Sakai, my assistant, she ran track for me at Skyline and went on to Kansas State. So you surround yourself with successful people and let them help you carry the load and make changes, right? And then, the other piece I think that people forget is that it's about motivating kids to reach or not even kids, but players or athletes, right? Motivating them to reach their full potential. So if you can do that at one level, you should be able to do it at the next level if you don't lose sight of your values, right? You can't compromise things. Some people will try to compromise winning at an expense to other things, right? And then they run into a slippery slope and they go downhill.
Coach, I want to get into your philosophy here in a minute, but let's go back just a little bit. You grew up in San Diego, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And what high school? I saw you were. What's
Kearney
that?
Kearney High School, 1977.
Did you say Kearney High?
Yes, sir.
Kearney High. Okay, very nice, very nice. Okay, so I saw you wound up coaching at Sarah, but what led you? Yes. What led you to coaching, and what did athletics mean to you when you were growing up?
So let's start with growing up. You just did it. I grew up in the 70s, 60s and 70s. And everybody, there was a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. So you all went outside to play, right? I mean, and that's kind of how the hierarchy went, right? So I was like the younger kid. I was 3 years younger than everybody. And so if I wanted to play, you had to be able to do, right? So I just worked at it so I could be a part of the group. And so you figured out ways to be successful. I remember going to the rec center playing basketball with the high school kids, and I'm, junior high or whatever. So I figured, well, I can't shoot. They're not going to pass me the ball to shoot, so I better be good at defense, right? So you figure out a way to stay on the court, and if you win, you get to stay on the court, right? So that was kind of the athletic side. And then coaching-wise for me was I had, a lot of success in high school as an offensive lineman, defensive lineman. I go to JC. I make all conference as a freshman. I'm getting letters from all over the place saying,
what junior college you go to?
Mesa College.
Ah, that boy, yeah, me too. Mesa alumni.
Yes. So I get all these letters, but really I'm a 6'1", 220, 230-pound offensive lineman. Who's going to really give me a big-time scholarship? But in my mind, I don't know any better because you get these form letters, right? They just probably see all conference. They just send out letters from a winning team. So I get hit midway through the season. I blow out my knee. What am I going to do? No scholarship. Then in June, I kind of get a scholarship to go to Eastern New Mexico, but I have to have a second knee operation. And Charlie Popo,
wait, coach. Yes. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I didn't know this. I didn't even know about Mesa. So I went to Mesa. You know what 4 year I went to? Eastern New Mexico. I went to Eastern New Mexico University. Played baseball.
Oh, really?
So that's kind of crazy. Anyway, go ahead.
So so Charlie, my offensive line coach, like, hey, look, you can't go right now. You can't just sit around and do nothing. Go over to this high school, the offensive line coach. You'll do a great job. And so Mike Williams, who's a phenomenal coach at Sarah, needed a offensive line coach for the varsity. It was his first year as the head coach. He hires me, and we do 2 years. We take this as a brand new school, so it was like in existence for I think I came on like the third year was in existence. And we take it to the playoffs for the first time ever, and I just loved it. So I decided this is I like it. I'm going to make this my passion. Everybody, teaching's a great job, right? I mean, at the time, I thought teaching, I get the summers off. I can go hang out at the beach, whatever, it'll be fun. But I didn't realize when you coach, there is no time off. So, but I didn't get that then. So that's kind of led me into coaching.
And so you were at Sarah for what, like 5 years and before? 2 years. 2 years. And then you guys made the move.
I made the move. I moved up to my wife, Cindy, was leaving UC San Diego to go to UC Berkeley and be closer to her family in San Jose. So I went ahead and came up, and it was ironic because I was going to go to San Francisco State because Vic Rome was a head coach at San Francisco State. It was a phenomenal coach, great legacy of developing coaches. But I went there.
Shortly. There we go. Okay. We got you back, Coach. So you moved up, be closer to your wife's family, and Skyline opened up. Did it open up before you moved or after? And you're like, hey, I found this school.
No, I mean, I was finishing up my degree, getting ready to student teach, and I was substitute teaching. I asked this guy, well, I want to coach high school football. What's a good program in Oakland? Because that's where I was working at. And the guy goes, well, Oakland High has been really good, but Skyline's good too. And I was at the junior high that fed Skyline. I just went up there and, cold called it. He said, yeah, I think I might have a position. Let me get back to you. And then he said, all right, you're hired, but didn't tell me what I was going to coach. And then all of a sudden it was August, time to start football. And he goes, okay, you're the defensive coordinator. I said, all right, gave me a playbook and told me to start coaching. And I did. And, we ended up beating De La Salle, going undefeated in my third year there. And so, I did 5 years as the D coordinator, and then I became the head coach. So
you mentioned beating De La Salle because not many teams did that in the regular season back then. And then I also read in the 90s, Coach, and this is staggering. You didn't lose a regular season game in the 90s. Is that true?
They lose a league game in the 90s.
In a league game how the heck did that happen?
Great players. Stay out of their way.
And so you've coached 12 players that were in the NFL, are in the NFL. How many of those were at Skyline?
Actually, I coached over 20 players in the NFL.
Oh, it's over 20. Okay, stand corrected.
Yes. So the bulk has been in from Skyline. I think at Laney I have 5. So probably about 15, 16 from Skyline and 5 from Laney.
So you mentioned a good point there, Coach. So really, really good players. But with that said, you can have really good players, but if you don't have the coaches to put them in a right position to be successful, then the team's not going to win. How did you recognize, hey, we have this kid, here's what I think he can do? Was it something collectively as a coaching staff? Did it depend on that particular individual as an athlete? How did you guys go about really not putting together your team, because you kind of have who you have, but how did you figure out a way to win year in and year out?
So a couple things, right? My first year as a head coach, I was 5-4-1. My second year, I was 10-0. And I only had 3 coaches, myself and 2 other coaches. That was our staff, varsity staff.
Wait, you went 10-0 and you had 3 total coaches?
Yeah, myself, Brett, and Chris Karyaku.
How did you run practice?
Easy, it was easy. It's keep it simple, stupid, right? We played man-to-man on defense. We ran the ball on offense. We blitzed, you keep it simple. But the next thing you do is you try to make sure that you put the best players on the field, and then you find a position for them instead of the other way around, right? So I had, like, the year we went 10-0, I had this kid.
Oh, man. Coach, the audio cut out again. The video's going to catch up. Yeah, there we go. So you were talking about one player in particular, the year you went 10-0. What happened?
First year, I mean, he's just a 5'7", 5'8" swimmer that wanted to play football, lifted his ass off, and he was just so quick. So I put him down at a 3 technique and told him just to get under every guard and just blow everything up. And he just run after everybody. No one could block him. He's so small. Now, the linebacker behind him was one of the best players I ever coached, right? And, was a Division I player. The running back and the outside linebacker was a, all Pac-10 player at USC, played in the NFL, right? So you surrounded these up, you got good guys and you got pieces, and it's finding the pieces to mesh with the good guys, and you have a team. Just keep it simple, and that's what we did.
Coach, here's one of the things that really stood out to me, and being a JC guy, you go in there, you build some friendships for life, whether it's with the players and or the coaches. As you know, I'm sure you're very close with a lot of your former players, and my JC coach, Kevin Hazlett, he's a big reason why I was able to get school paid for, because he spoke very highly of me, and I'll never forget that. But going into junior college, you always wonder, like, hey, because that's like the goal. Like, I want to go play 4-year. I want to get my degree. I want to go play, and I want to get that done. And so that's one of the big goals. And to have good coaching like that, and people that care about you of all people know that. But this stat, ladies and gentlemen, this is what's so amazing. I read, Coach, and correct me if I'm wrong, 90% of your athletes, your players at Laney, are either getting scholarships or transferring to a 4-year university. Is that true?
Yeah, they're graduating or transferring, correct. Now, and I say that, and I want to be clear, I think it's a great stat, but it's an easy stat to achieve, right? Because there's so many schools out there, like we talked about Eastern New Mexico, Kansas Wesleyan, that are looking for players. And if your player can understand that they have to leave Oakland or the Bay Area and go somewhere in the middle of nowhere and to get a scholarship to keep playing a game they love, go for it. And it's worked. Now, some of our guys will go on and just get a certificate and go into firefighting, right? Law enforcement. We have a culinary school at Laney. So, we've had one guy want to go to culinary. Some have gotten welding certificates and wanted to go weld, right? So again, so we count that as a win, right? That's part of that. And I think it's important that we all understand that because, I never forget this. I have one of the kids I coach at Skyline and, was a good player, not a great player, was a good student, not a great student. He had some learning disabilities, right? But all along he said, when I get done, I'm going to be a plumber. That's what I want to do, coach. So, all right. So fast forward about 6 years later, his best friend from high school went on to a JC, went on to a Division I, Power 5 conference, right? He gets done playing, pursuing the NFL thing, doesn't make it. He comes back to his good friend who's the plumber now, right? No degree, 4 degree, renting house from him because a plumber has been working since high school, moving up the ladder as a trade and buying property and now renting it to his former classmates and friends, right? So there's nothing wrong with being a plumber because that's what he wanted to do, right? I asked him one time, like, well, why is that? He goes, Coach, I like football, but I only play because all my friends play. I hate contact. It hurts when you get hit. That's okay. That makes sense. So, but you're playing tight end. He goes, I know. That's why I catch the ball and I try to run out of bounds as fast as I can. So, I get it. You kind of laugh about it. But, he had a perspective that all his friends played football, so he wanted to play. But in his mind, he knew what he wanted to do, and that's been very successful for him. And I think it's okay to say that to people, right? We don't all need college degrees. We just need to be successful.
Coach, how important is relationship building, not only with your coaching staff, but more importantly, a lot of times the players, because they gotta buy in every year, right? Every single year they gotta buy in regardless of what you've done previously. How important is that one-on-one relationship with each kid? And I know you're able to spend more time with some of your players than you are with others, and that's where the position coaches come in and the coordinators come in. But for you, what does it mean to be a relationship builder and somewhat of a father figure to your student athletes?
Important. It's like the keystone of who I am and what we are successfully at Laney and at Skyline. Skyline was easier, right? You have 40 kids, you coach them all, you see them every day at school, right? Year round. It was easy to bond. Now I have 120 kids, and I call the offense. So I don't get a chance to spend as much time with the defense as I would like to, but in the off season, I make sure I'm in the weight room with the defense. Every day when we stretch in groups, lines, but I always make sure I go to the defensive lines so that I can, play with them, mess around with them, bother them, talk shit to them, before we start, because I won't see them again until the end of practice. And I think that's so important. And like I tell every kid, right, my door is always open, and they know. So the saying at Laney is, who signs the check? Coach Beam signs the check. So if there's a problem, you got to come see me. And so we get it. So like I tell them, like, if you don't like your playing time, you talk to your position coach, and then you talk to the coordinator, but you can always come talk to me. But when you talk to me, we're going to put the film on right now. We film every practice, every game, and we're going to look at that right now in my office. Now, you may not like how it comes out, but that's what we're going to do. And so, there's no ambiguity of how well you're doing. Here you are. Here's practice. You're standing around. Or sometimes I go, wait a minute, you're busting your ass. So then I go back to the coordinator and the position coach. I go, well, I'm watching the same film, and I don't see this guy playing, and I'm watching the film. What's going on? So we make some changes there too. So you got to hold your coaches accountable as well. So like I tell the players I sign the check, the coaches know I sign the check as well.
Coach, what's the difference, in your opinion, say coaching where you have almost your entire career in the town, as you guys refer to it, and I want you to elaborate more on that in a minute, but in Oakland compared to, say, like a a De La Salle or a Modern Day or something like that. And I'm sure you've had many offers, whether it's high school, it's at the collegiate level. Talk a little bit about the difference and why you did stay. Did you feel like that's where you belong? Like, this is your place, these are your people, and these are the ones that I feel that I can help the most? Talk a little bit about that if you can, please.
So growing up, I'm half Asian, half Korean, right? My dad is white, has some Native American, and I grew up in my first memories of living in Japan, right? Because my dad was in the Navy, and I remember coming to San Diego, start kindergarten, and one day, and remember, this is kindergarten. This memory still sticks with me, right? So, I'm in Japan now. I come into San Diego. I'm going to kindergarten, and I remember this girl asking me what was wrong with my eyes. Like, okay. I go, what do you mean? They're like, she goes, they're different. I go, really? I never knew they were different. Going to Kearney High School, right? Growing up, where it was in the 70s, right? I mean, it was a different area, right? And so Patrick Henry was the school with all the money, and we weren't. Madison or Claremont, right? So because I grew up around the beach, I knew people there, but then I'm at Kearney. And so I started to see that you're treated a little bit different sometimes, right? If you got a little bit more melanin, a little bit more skin tone, right? And so it made sense. And then when I came to Oakland and I started teaching junior high and coaching at Skyline, I started realizing that people didn't have a voice always. Someone had to be a voice for them. And it turned out that was me. I had no problem voicing my opinion to people or standing up to authority, right? Which is funny, being a head football coach, because I believe in authority, obviously, but yet I stand up to it all the time. And so it kind of shaped it. And it was so funny because when LastChanceU came out, I got a text from a friend that's now coaching in the NFL. And, during my career, there's been opportunities to leave at different times. And I would ask this guy all the time, well, should I go coach D1? What do you think? And he wrote in this text, he said, after watching the show, I used to tell everybody, if you left, who would look out for the young people of Oakland? And that's why you needed to stay. And so here was an outsider that already saw what I was doing and then related that to me in a text message, right? So I guess it was just kind of destined to happen that I walked into a situation. Remember, in the 80s, early 80s when I started coaching, right, the drug trade in Oakland was exploding, right? They were dropping hundreds of bodies a year. I mean, I went to so many funerals. And so your job was to keep, when you come to school, that's where they got to come to school feeling that they're protected. And you become the protector for these evil things outside some ways, right? And then you start to show them a way that they can be the protector for the next group of person, right? So they can help somebody else. And so I think it just kind of morphed into that. I felt comfortable here. I felt wanted. I felt like I could make a difference, and I just stayed.
So would you say that you're close to a lot of your former players?
Oh, man, it's unbelievable. So a year ago, we won the state championships, #1 team in the country. That January, so that's in December. January, I turned 60. And so my wife goes, well, do you want to do something? Do you want to party? I'm like, nah, not really. And then I go, well, maybe. So she throws me a quasi surprise party because she had to get some things. But we kind of had this little place. One of my ex-players on a building, so we had it there. The problem was we had over 300 people wanting to come, and we had to cut it off. And it was people were finding out from other people. And then somehow one of my guys showed me, goes, hey, it came out on social media that you're going to have this party, and all these people are hitting me up. They want to come. And we said, we don't want to say no. We just couldn't invite, and we ran out of room, right? I mean, it's a January, it's raining out, a little cold, and we got 300 plus people walking in to a venue just to say happy birthday. And it was touching, right? So, like I said, besides my coaching on my staff, they're all playful. I call them friends now. They're actually mentoring me in life now, right? There's, kids that I see all up and down the way. And then I taught PE for years, right? So I taught, even though I was coaching up at Skyline, I was teaching junior high PE because there wasn't a job there yet. So I've got kids that
Hey, I don't know. It's funky today. What's going on?
Yeah, I moved to a different location, see if I got better internet here.
Hey, well, I appreciate you getting back on. There's
No
a few
worries.
more things I do want to cover. One of which is leadership, your philosophy, and leadership as it pertains to coaching, entrepreneurs, that type of thing. But you were talking about teaching at the junior high when you were coaching at Skyline and the community, kind of, and your birthday, I think it was. But if you want to go from there, that would be outstanding.
Well, I think I guess the biggest thing is that, I've taught junior high for so long as well as PE. So I've always taught, right? So even now at Laney, right? Most people coach but don't teach. I also teach. I love the teaching part of it, right? And so, and when you teach PE in Oakland, that means you teach 52 kids per class.
Oh, wow.
Times 5, that's 260.
Wait a minute, Coach. Hold on. There's 52 kids in a PE class? One class?
One class.
Why is that?
Contract rules, you know what I mean? But it's okay. That's what I'm saying. We were having this conversation. People ask, well, how are you successful? What do you do? I said, well, one is I had great training because I started teaching junior high. If you can get 52 kids and, junior high kids to do what you want to do, then you know how to control a class, right? And then you get them to enjoy what you're doing, right? So, that's 260 kids a year, right? Times 30, 40 years, you can see why I've taught so many people. And then, and then every kid takes PE. So even though, like at the junior high, I was the only male PE teacher. So I had when they came in to change for class and shower, I'm the only guy in there. So that, again, you meet the other people. So you just start to know a lot of folks. And so you kind of make things happen. But even when I was teaching PE, I wanted to be different, right? So I'm teaching PE at Frick, and our marking periods are 6 weeks. And so I got a grant from the Marcus Foster Foundation, and I said, all right, I want to call it the 100% Club. And so what it was is you had to come to class every single day, no excuses. Even if you had a doctor's appointment, you were sick in the hospital, didn't matter. You got to be perfect attendance, dress every day, participate every day, and shower every day. If you did that for 6 weeks, you made the 100% Club. And the reward for the 100% Club was I wanted to do something different. So this is Oakland kids, right? We're doing PE on an asphalt. There's no grass, there's no gravel. It's just asphalt. So I wanted to do something different, right? So I took them ice skating. I took them swimming. I took them horseback riding. I took them river rafting. I took them skiing. I wanted to give them an experience that you would get at the modern days or the suburban schools, right? And I wanted these young folks to learn that anything's possible, that there's a whole world outside of Oakland that they've never seen. When I was at Skyline and I'm sending these kids to Division I, they're taking their trips on a plane. Most have never been on a plane before, so they were afraid to get on a plane to go take their recruiting trip. They've never been on one. So I started every year traveling with our team for Skyline. We flew to Hawaii, we played in the Shanakina class, we played in Vegas, played down in LA. I wanted them to get on a plane with me and do something different, but not only for the guys that were being recruited, but also for the guys just so that they could see there's life outside of Oakland and Skyline. So I wanted to expand their horizons.
Because that experience in and of itself is almost invaluable, right? And Coach, I want to ask you this. So when you're teaching at, is it Frick Middle School?
Frick and Abrams,
and you were doing all these things with the kids, for the kids, who was paying for that?
Well, the grant was, or we would raise money, right? So one thing is this, right? All the years I was at Skyline, right, I never gave the kids anything free. I wanted them to earn it. So like you see all this time, they win a championship, they want them to buy them a ring. Can you give me money to buy the kids rings? I'm like, okay, we're going to ask for it, but we're going to try to make our own ring money, right? So that it's something of value. When we went to Hawaii, we had to raise all this money to fly to Hawaii and everything, right? We did it. Now we had some corporate help, But the kids went out selling stuff. We had bowling nights. We had to, get people to come to bowling night. We did 3-point contests at school. We did a barbecue at school, right? They had it sell. So we did those things, right? Same thing when I was at the junior high. I would run lunchtime tournaments. Like we have a wrestling tournament, I have a basketball tournament. And kids would pay to come and watch. And so it was great, right? And the same thing when I'm teaching PE at the junior high, I'm like, okay, we're not just going to roll out and play basketball. We would barely ever play basketball, right? So I taught them, I did a whole tumbling unit, right? So I taught them how to do tumbling. It couldn't be gymnastics because we didn't have the bars, but we'd do tumbling. I did wrestling. I did soccer. I did speedball. I did over the line. You can appreciate that in Southern California. They had never seen it, right? So, but at the same time, they're teaching me new things. So like in Oakland, when you play softball or baseball, they play what's called piggy on the bounce. You've never heard of piggy on the bounce, have you?
Nope.
Because kids don't have gloves, right? So you can let it bounce one time and then catch it and they're out, like catching a fly ball. Because it's hard to catch a fly ball when you don't have a glove, right? It hurts. So you run, you let it bounce, and then you catch it on the bounce. So 1 bounce piggy on the bounce. And then sometimes you could modify, like, okay, you could have a 2 bounce piggy on the bounce, right? Because the kid, So you learn these cool things, right?
Interesting.
And we were talking about this. I taught paddleball is this new game everybody's all fired up about, right? On the courts now, paddleball. Everybody's playing it, right? It's the suburban new game, right? Well, we taught paddleball, but we didn't have no paddles, right? So I used Frisbees. And we would hold the Frisbee, hit the ball with the Frisbee. And I had some friends that I used to teach in junior high that now were teaching PE in these suburban areas would come back and watch. They go, well, that's not how you play paddleball. Well, I made the rules because I only had X amount of courts and I had to put 52 people on a court. Right?
So Coach, you enjoy coming up with new ideas, inventive ways of doing things and seeing how the kids respond to it. But it sounds like for you, you really enjoy being an innovator.
I enjoy having fun, right? And I don't want money to be an obstacle, right? Too many people, so I can't do this because I don't have the money. I can't do that because I don't have the money. Have you heard that all the time, right? So find ways around it. Don't let that be your excuse of not experimenting and trying something, right? We can do so much. And then when people start to see what you're doing, then they want to join the bandwagon and help out, right? And then all of a sudden we got paddles, right? Just like when we traveled as a team, we would travel as a team on the plane. I made them wear a shirt and tie. They go, why? Well, it's a business trip, right? Businessmen wear shirt and ties on the plane. Now, I don't have a ton of shirt and ties. I mean, I have a ton of ties, but not shirts, right? Because I only need like a white shirt and I just bring different colored ties. So I'd bring ties to the airport because they didn't have a tie. They couldn't get on the plane. Simple as that. And so, you do things like that. I mean, those are just simple things that and kids start to expect that, right? They're looking for that, they'll tell you, I got my tie, like we're in start a camp or something, or even summer. And they go, Coach, my mom got my tie. I'm ready for our trip, which is coming in 8 weeks from now, right? But they know the rules. They know the expectations. It's us putting expectations on folks, right? The higher the expectation, the higher the people can rise. If we put low expectations, they're going to be low. When we won the state championship for California, we're the first team to make it as a large team. We're the first small school to ever make it. We're the first school with like less than double. We only had 8 out-of-state players, right? Everybody else had all these out-of-state players. You can win with community players. Coach them up. That's what we did.
That's amazing. When I saw that stat on the show, and I was like, wow, you guys really are coaching up the kids in your community. Because you look back to previous seasons of the show, and they're getting kids from all over the country, it seems, right? And you have to have a certain amount from the state. I'm guessing that's the case, but to only have 8 and to get it done that way with the local kids and all these kids growing up knowing who you are, right? And then let's go to your 60th birthday. Let's go back to that. How did it make you feel when all of these people showed up and they just wanted to say happy birthday to Coach?
It was unbelievable, right? And then we gave them a chance to speak, and they're telling stories, and there's tears, you know what I mean, that you made a difference in someone's life. You know, you taught them how to be a father. You know, they saw my wife and I as a couple. You know, those are important. I mean, they watched my kids grow up, right? They've seen them grow, and you know, because I've took them to everything from the time they were born, right? And I've always lived near the school I teach at, right? So when I was like at Frick, they would actually pick me up in the morning and walk me to school, because I would open up the gym early. If you had a 3.0 or better, you could go into the gym early and shoot around, right? Before school. So you do stuff like that, you know, you stay late. So I think those are all good memories, and those are things that they shared with folks that when you come back, but you don't realize it made such a difference to people's lives, right? Until you hear it again. And so that was an interesting thing. Just like the people that reached out to me since the show's come out, right? I mean, it's phenomenal. And, you know, people that have been in my life 30 years ago, you know, 20 years ago, and they see it. And so it's been, you know, pretty neat for that to happen as well.
Coach, let's switch topics here real quick, because I do, you know, in light of everything that's going on, we do got to talk a little. I guess we don't, but whatever. I'm curious to know what you would be doing right now if we weren't in the middle of this this COVID pandemic. What would you be doing right now, preparing for the? I mean, you'd probably have a game coming up next weekend, right?
Yeah. So yesterday would have been the quote official first day of practice in the 3C2A. We would have had before that 2 weeks of our what we call mini camp, where we have a class that starts us off. So I'd be going, you know, I'd be at school every day from about 8 in the morning to about 8 at night, 12-hour days, you know, at the school, getting ready, dealing with issues, getting kids in class, making sure they have financial aid, making sure they're getting their, you know, IEP dealt with, you know, the things like that. Making sure they get Brook vouchers and, you know, bus passes. So all that's not happening right now. So instead I sit on Zoom hearing people complain about, you know, we're not playing, or, you know, trying to figure out these rules, who should be eligible, who shouldn't be eligible. Or last night in this meeting of 300 coaches and ADs talking about it's a violation to feed a kid who's hungry, right? In the 3C2A, that, well, you can't.
Is it?
Yes. It's an impermissible benefit if you give them too much. Because
so that's all from the NCAA, yeah.
Yes, but that's the problem with the 3C2A. We're not the NCAA, so let's remember that.
Good point.
So,
Coach, I don't agree with any of that stuff from the NCAA. Honestly, I think the NAIA has a lot better bylaws. And
yes,
and they're a little more. I mean, you of all people, you know, it's just more flexible with what you can do. And for what these kids do and what they go through, and there's no compensation. And they say once you get to the 4-year level, well, you're getting your education, getting this, getting that. We're like, yeah, to your point, Coach, they still need to eat. Are they going to eat? They're going to eat Taco Bell every night, which is crap. And you hear a lot of student athletes talk about, like, we didn't have any money. Some student, as you know, some student athletes have money and they can buy decent food. Other kids don't have anything. Yeah, maybe they have their meal plan. Maybe they have a few extra dollars. Maybe they're tired of going and you know, eating at the cafeteria, their meal plan, because every time they see that food now, they want to throw up. I don't know, but to your point, I think whatever. I go off on rants too, Coach. I just think it's kind of BS. You can't just help a kid eat.
No, we don't. We have food insecurity, housing insecurity in this state, and yet we can't. You have put rules on me for being human, right? I cannot do common decency things that we would for anybody else because I'm a coach or they're a player. So we've regulated humanity in essence. That's a shame.
Regulated humanity. Interesting. You know, Coach, my daughter and I were going to Feeding America today, and we've never volunteered for that before, but we had Feeding America on the podcast a couple of times, and interesting stats. So during the pandemic, they fed over 98,000 people during the first 6 or 13 weeks, and normally they would have fed under 200 people. So 98,000, where normally it's less than 200. So obviously there's a bit of a challenge there. And, you know, I think about a lot. You talked about questioning authority. I question everything. And I think you kind of have to, not to say that the information you're getting is wrong, but does it make sense, right? And is there anything we can do about it? So anyway, Coach, I'm on board with everything you're saying there, because there's just an awful lot of flaws in here in the state and across the country. And I'm sure we can dive into all sorts of other crap if we wanted to. But what I wanted to ask you, because this is extremely valuable to everybody in a leadership position or who wants to be in a leadership position, whether you're running a business, you're a coach, you're a manager, you're an executive. What's your philosophy on being a good leader? And how did you develop into being an excellent leader?
So think about this, right? A good leader, right, to me, has two jobs, right? He's security and he's a custodian. First job as a leader is I'm going to protect you. I got your back. I'm going to make sure that you can do what you need to do. And if you make a decision, I'm going to protect that decision because I've given you that leeway to do it. The second as a janitor is because I have you back. If it doesn't work, I'm going to clean up your shit for you. Right? And then we'll figure that out. So I used to be a master teacher. So I would get student teachers in, right? They come in, I watch them, let them watch me teach for a day or two. And I said, okay, here's your class. And I leave. I step back and I just leave them, sink or swim, right? And I can't, because if I'm there, the kids will always look for me to give them directions. Now I'm watching, I'm observing, and I'm going to be there. We're going to talk about it, but I want you to do it. If I'm there, then I'm doing it for you. It can't happen. And so I turned out some pretty good teachers, and some failed pretty badly, right? They had all these, I remember this one teacher, she had this list of things that she was going to teach kids. And she was mad that I wasn't teaching all these different skills in soccer. Okay. After about 3 weeks coming to me in tears every day because they couldn't get anything done correctly, right? Then she started like picking one skill that you can teach them and be happy with. And once you get that one skill, build to a next skill. But you can't go, I'm going to teach 30 skills of soccer to a group that's never played soccer before. I mean, she wanted them to head the ball, right? And so you got these kids, right? You know, girls and guys. Well, the girls were afraid of messing up their hair, right? And they're hitting this ball, and the balls were pumped up extra hard, right? And it would hurt them. So I said, well, why don't you teach them how to do something different? Use, some different type of ball. She never thought about that because she'd been around soccer her whole life, right?
And so, now we know heading the ball can lead to concussions or give concussions.
But you hear what I'm saying? Some of the things. The other thing I think that a good leader starts with is that he tells the people that work for him or her, right, they're under him, that they're all leaders themselves. So I'm a leader.
So you're talking about empowering.
Yes.
Empowering everybody and making them feel like they have that self-worth. And I love that they already feel like they are a leader. So what do you think that does for for individuals when you tell them that?
Well, I hope it makes sense to them. So like even for position coach, right? You're the head coach of the offensive line. You're the head coach of the wide receiver. So take control of your group, set your own type of rules, right? And deal with it, right? And see if that will help. But you have to empower them. Then with the kids within the individual kids, right? Okay, you're going to be you're all leaders. So you start with leading yourself, number one. So what's the first thing a good leader does? He shows up every day, right? So if you're leading yourself, did you show up every day? No, you missed. So you're not a good leader, right? That's the first one. Then it's to show up on time. Not only show up every day, but then show up on time. So you give them little things to build on. When they've been good at that, then you can be a leader of yourself and one other person, maybe, or 3 people. and you slowly build their responsibilities, right? But you let them know that they're a leader in charge of it. We tell them first is you got to lead yourself. Then we can go from there. Because if not, they're always looking for me to tell them what to do, right? I can't tell you what to do every day. I'm not going to be there for your whole life. So, you got to start doing that. I can just give you examples of what I think you should do, but you have to decide if that's important enough for you to do it. In the show, Ray and his brother, you don't see his brother that much, but they had to make a decision because they lived right down the way from us. And then when their dad was killed, they had to move full time with their mom in Stockton. So was it worth a 2-hour drive every day to come play for us and go? That's your decision, Ray. I don't want to hear you ain't got gas in your car. I don't want to hear that. The problem was that through Ray's life, Shawnee, his older brother, directed him, or his dad directed him. So last year was his first time that he was totally on his own to be responsible for himself. He struggled, and him and I worked on that all year long. You don't see it all on the film, but those were the same conversations. Him and I would come in my office, like, Sean, you don't have gas. Or Ray, how come? Why didn't you put gas in the night before? Why didn't you think about it? You know how long gas lasts, right? If you go from Stockton to Oakland, when do you have to, how many days before you have to fill up again? Start figuring that out, right? And so those were the things that he had to learn to deal with on his own. But it was the first time he had ever done it. And so it was a big learning curve for him.
Coach, and this is my perception, my takeaway of what you're talking about. And it almost sounds like it's a very much of a libertarian approach, meaning I'm going to teach you how to do this, okay? But then you're responsible to get it done. And that's kind of what I'm taking from that. And just watching a little bit, of the show, and I'm not quite done with it. I got like 2 more episodes left, but I keep the same things keep coming up, right? It's like, hey, how many times have we shown you how to do this and you're still not doing that? Well, whose issue is that? Is that us as coaches, or is that you as a player? And it's putting it on the player to be responsible. And I would imagine, based on your success, that 9 out of 10 times the kids will bounce back and understand, yeah, it's me. I need to make the change. Is that kind of an accurate statement?
It is, but there's also a point that we as coaches have to be flexible and look like we have to change what we're doing too if they're not. So it's hard, right? Because we have to all be one team, right? One team, one beat, that whole deal, right? But at the same time, we have to understand that some people learn differently, and I got to come up with different ways to get the message across. And that's, I have an adaptive PE credential, right? So I got to reach into those bag of tricks to sometimes do it. And sometimes you don't see it quick enough. You don't do it well enough. Sometimes that's the self-reflection that you have to be willing to take. And as coaches, as well as players, we have to self-reflect on that, right? And be okay saying that, yeah, I screwed that one up. It's okay. And then,
well, Coach, how important is it to have, some of your former players on your staff now that are younger? Because, and I've heard this a lot. I've heard you talk about this on the show too, where the mentality of the player now is a little bit different. And so, have you had to learn from your former players, assistant coaches, how to relate a little bit more with the kids of this generation? And also, are the kids really that much different, or is it just because of technology and information that's out there?
Yeah, they're not. They're still when you strip them of all that, they're the same person, right? But we have to strip them of some of that. Like in one part of the show, it doesn't show it, right? We're at halftime, and I go in the locker room. So we're talking, and also I see a defensive player that doesn't play very much in the locker room on his phone trying to post something on social media. What are you doing, brother? Right? They can't let it go, right? And so those are some things you have to strip away. That sort of thing. But I think the other thing is that, like there's a softer approach sometimes, right? And so that's why you bring these assistants in, because they can sometimes do the translation for you, right? Well, this is what coach really meant, right? He's got your back. He might have screamed at you or whatever. He said these things, but listen, Not how it came out, but what the words were. These are things you need to improve. That could be something as simple as that. The other thing is that they'll always, I think they do a really good job of being a leader, being the protector of their position group, right? You'll hear me all the time, quit protecting them, because I'm ripping them. And so they know that. And so one of the things that I'll do sometimes is I'll get on one of my coaches in front of his players so the players know that he has their back, right? And so they know that, well, my DB coach is protecting me against the wrath of Coach Beam. I'm going to make sure I don't put him in that situation again. And then when we meet as a group, the coaches go, I know why you did that, right? I did, exactly. I said, he needed to hear that, but instead of me ripping him on that way, I ripped you. And now he feels bad that you took the heat for his constant mistake. And so if you built a relationship with that kid now wants to do well for you so that you can show me that he was right. And those are the dynamics of good coaching.
So, Coach, last couple of things here. What advice would you give to anyone who's considering going into coaching and wanting to be a head coach at the high school level, JC level, or even the 4-year level, or even beyond, whatever? They want to be a head coach at some point. What are 3 things that you would tell them that they should probably consider or focus on to be good at what they do?
Number 1, be you. You can't be me, right? Be you. Whoever you are, that's who you have to be. You got to be genuine, right? You need to be consistent. Whatever rules or whatever you have, I don't have written rules. A couple of my coaches get upset because I don't have these written rules. I don't have time to write them. And I think the kids see rules will be broken, right? Just have an overall general philosophy, right? Do it the right way. And they go, well, what's the right way? The way I want it to be. So, but I would say that, number 1 is make sure that you're you. Number 2 is to be compassionate. Understand that there's a lot going on and you need to understand what that is in their lives, right? You can't coach a kid that's because, like in the show, Dior has a game where he drops like 3 balls right in his hand, touchdowns. Well, I'm mad at him, and then I tell him, hey, get out of your head, we're fine. And so I pump him up, and everybody's all excited about it. But what you don't hear later or even in that time is I have a discussion with my assistant, my athletic assistant, and I'm like, you knew Dior's mom was here? If I'd have known his mom was here to visit him for the first time, that was his anxiety. I could have dealt with that. So I need all the information, right? So if I'm going to be a head coach, I want to make sure I surround myself with people that have my back and will give me the information I need to be successful. So Sakai's job, right? She's like the mother figure, in the building, and kids tell her things that, what's going on in their life. And then she tells me, so I know that I can go out, not as a snitch, but to help me so I know what's happening so I can understand where they're coming from. Like
Coach, you know what? You almost got me tearing up last night. Is it Rayshawn, number 2? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So when he he had a bit of an injury, and I was thinking about it because I was thinking that he's thinking, oh no, my opportunity is gone. My life is over. And you felt that through the film. And I can sit and I can almost put myself there going, oh my God, I've kind of felt some of the same things. Because I was benched in junior college my sophomore year after coming off an all conference. I was being a jackass, coach. I was being a jackass coming off of shoulder surgery, and my swing was jacked up and I wasn't producing. And my coach benched me, taught me the greatest lesson, one of the greatest lessons of my life. But I remember thinking, it's over. Like, it's over. It's over. I have no chance to get a scholarship. And so I kind of brought myself back there, and I'm like, wow. And then all of a sudden, here comes who? Here comes Coach Beam. And what you said to him, don't worry about it. I got you. I got you. And for me, watching that, just understanding my coaches, because coaches have a lot of influence, and they know a lot of people, and they know what type of kids that they have, and the ability that they possess and where they can play and where they probably can't play, right? But you knew, I got you, man. And that's what the feeling I got, and I'm sure everyone else watching, but it just kind of brought me back old memories. And I just thought that was amazing because you mentioned compassion. And you went up to him and you reassured him that he was good. And I love that. And then you went back to coaching. You guys won the game like it was great. Anyway, that just kind of stuck out to me.
But part of the problem, remember, is Ray's dad was killed over a year ago. And he was going through some of the trial stuff. And so when I said, I got you, is because, his dad's not around to comfort him, right? In the community that I work in, black males don't get comforted a lot. You got to be willing to be vulnerable and hug them up, right? And it's okay to cry. It's okay to give him a big hug, and I kissed him on his forehead. Like, I got you, man. We're good on this. We're going to be this together. Whatever. Not even going to Oregon State where he ended up going or whatever, but just we'll get through this incident, this bump in the road, because he was starting to spiral out of control, right? Disparity happened. Depression happens, right? Before you know it, right? So I needed to step in. It was the middle of a hot game, and I saw that, and I needed to go over there and just give him that, just a minute. Everybody goes, oh, you did it in the middle of the game. Yeah, okay, but it wasn't that long, right? I mean, we were probably on defense most likely because I'm a play calling offense, but on defense, all I do is probably get in everybody's way anyway. So here's a way, again, I can help in a different way, which is, not only does he feel better, but the other players see that I got him, right? And so it's all one big dynamic, but that's what you would do to your family, right? If your son, your brother, your uncle, your nephew, you would go tell them, we're in this together. I have you. And that's the whole key.
Coach, one of the things that everyone notices about your coaching style is your passion and your energy. How much energy, positive energy, do you feel like that you're putting out there to your players at practice, and more so during the games? Because that's when the blood is boiling. How much do you think that helps? Because there's not a lot of people that can replicate the energy that you bring.
Again, be you, right? So in the middle of the game, we do something great. You see me running up and down the sideline. I don't even know I do that half the time, right? But I do. But the same, to me, you got to have that energy also in practice and the off season as well, right? You got to have fun with the kids. You got to laugh with them. They got to see that. And it's, I don't know, like people, I'm 61. I've been doing this 40 years. I could retire. Why do you still go? It's still fun. The day it's not fun is the day I don't go anymore, right? When it's not fun, you're not getting something back. So whatever energy I'm giving out, trust me, I'm getting that back from 50, 60, 100 kids. Going now, when you teach and you come home, I fall asleep in that chair. Now, I ain't gonna lie. You know what I mean? I'm exhausted by the time I get home, right? But you gotta make it happen. And so, like on Saturday, if we play Friday night home games and I give them Saturday off, I might, I get up and I do whatever I need to do. My wife and I take our walk, and I'll do a few little things. I'll go sit in that chair. I'll turn on college football. I don't watch college football. I'm out. I mean, I don't. Everybody goes, oh, you must watch a lot of football on TV. Heck no, I'm tired. If it's not my film, I'm going to read something or I'm going to fall asleep. I'm beat, It's like, it's done because you do give so much, right? It's like, you're out. I'm wore out.
So, Coach, couple of final things here. LastChanceU, and I know we've talked quite a bit about it, but how did that come about? And what was the experience like in filming that? Just talk about that briefly.
So I don't know, what was their thinking when I found out a little bit after the show what they were thinking. But my thought was, we had just got done winning the state national championship. I get off a plane. I'm going to go meet with some relatives. We're going to be in Denver, do some skiing. And I get an email that says, hey, this is Lucas Smith. I'm with LastChanceU. Have you heard of it? We'd love to have a conversation, with a phone number. So I called the phone number, and it's bad number. So I'm thinking, oh, I got punked. They hoaxed me, right? And so we're laughing. So then, you know, one daughter's all fired up. One daughter's, Dad, you can't do it. My wife's like, we shouldn't do it. So anyways, so I emailed back. I said, hey, the number's bad. He goes, oh, he sends me the right number. So we have a conversation. What I heard later and kind of through their thought process, what they've done 2 shows with scholarships, different guys. They wanted to do come to California, kind of show California's way is way different, no scholarships. They also, I guess, wanted to do maybe a coach that's been around a little bit longer. And then they said, as soon as they come in, they got 4 or 5 schools that are interested. So they show up at each of the school and kind of meet you and walk around. They said as soon as they met me and walked on campus and through the city, they knew they wanted to do Laney because of, we're so tied into Oakland, what's going on, right? So, it's more than just that. There's the whole thing about how our kids do, and they said they love the energy and that, I'm not a coach looking to move on. Like the last coach was his first head job, I guess, and JC was looking to move on, right? I'm not going anywhere. I'm fine where I'm at. I'm happy as can be. So I guess that's why, that this is kind of what they wanted to show. And from the reviews and everything, I guess they got what they wanted because people have been fired up about it.
So what have you learned from being a part of the show?
Well, one is, so I'm thinking when they do the show, right, it's going to be a couple guys with some handheld cameras, maybe a GoPro, right? And there's like 20 or 30 people every day sitting there with $100,000 cameras instead, right? Like, oh snap. This is the real deal. This is not no fly by night joint. This is $1 million company, basically. It's real. I found out that, the world is really small because 2 members of one cameraman and one of the associate producers actually came from Oakland and knew one grew up right around the corner. The other one knew Sakai and her people growing up. You know what I mean?
So they knew of you,
I guess, or partially, but didn't know me, but knew me, right? And so you go, wow, it's just that impactful, right? I know that when you start with that either it's me or them or whatever, but all of a sudden they felt like they were part of my family and my circle all of a sudden. And I thought of them as my family and my circle. So they got brought into my sphere of influence as well. And that was cool, so I like that.
So were you told just to go about your business and they were going to do their thing? Was it scripted at all?
No, heck
okay.
no. So that you come up in the morning, they're waiting for you, right? And sometimes, depending on their hour, because they're union too, right? So they mic you up, and then they roll, and they got 3 cameras all over the building, right? And then 3 cameras plus like 6 or 7, 8 associate producers, because even though there's only 3 cameras, but there might be 10 or 12 people mic'd up. And so if they hear a conversation or hear something going on, then they tell the camera to go to that area because everybody listens to different people's conversations and they like what's going on that might be interesting. They go film it. Now they do not script, but they schedule like individual interviews with folks, right? So you do know I'm going to be interviewed on this day, or once they found out I walk every morning, they said, okay, we're going to come watch you walk. What time do you walk? I said 8:30. So one day, the first time they showed up at like 8 o'clock knocking on my door. I said, I told you 8:30. I slammed the door. We don't get out, but they want to mic you before you walk, right? And I'm like, we come out the door at 8:30. We're not coming out earlier. This is our routine. Don't mess up our routine, And then they had to get on BART, right? And then they were worried about BART. So I called one of my guys. It's now like high up in BART police. Like, hey, if you see him, just let my people on the BART. Don't trip because they got the camera. So they're like, oh my God, you have this type of influence in the city? Yeah. Well, what about Oakland police? Oh yeah. Well, those are my guys. Half of them played for me, So, we kind of worked it around. And so that's why they kind of, well, what about the mayor? Well, she was a cheerleader at Skyline when I was a head coach, they're like, oh, really? So can we do? So they just were amazed at the different, where my influence went to people, right? And they were pretty, kind of shocked about that in essence. So yeah, you just kind of go, but that's not only scripting would be is that, like if we showed up at 1 or 2 of the games, they asked us, could you come down this street, when the bus comes instead of that street? I'm like,
okay,
I'll tell the bus driver if I remember. But
yeah,
if I
want to get the best shots.
Right, and I don't always remember to tell the bus driver which way to go.
So last thing about the show, and then there's a couple quick hitters I want to get to. So what new opportunities have presented themselves from you guys being a part of LastChanceU?
Well, what I'm hearing is that California Canopy wants to give me free canopies and everything with LastChanceU, Laney all over it to really take care of our place. So I'm fired up about that. Really nothing really that I know about, to be honest. I think there's been people, we partner with Oaklandish, which is an institution in Oakland with their design, as you can tell, with the oak. And so we're making some money off that. People have reached out to us wanting to make donations to help feed our athletes. So that's been kind of cool. But really, speaking all over, I've gotten some people that want me to do some, speak about, what we're doing to leadership groups and different things like that. But the biggest opportunity been for me has been with the COVID and everything is I get to spend every single day with my granddaughter, my first and grandchild. So she was born right in December 29th. And so since the pandemic, I see her every day and we take about a 3-mile walk every afternoon. So I'm fired up.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's, so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I think I think my colleagues in the 3C2A are always, some are happy with me, some are not happy with me, exposing our dirty laundry of the not being able to feed kids and house them,
Well, come on. You gotta be able to speak your mind, and especially if you have that platform, how you got to be able to speak your mind. And if you can't, then what's the point?
This, right? So you go to Tahoe all the time. Do you go to spring conference too? I know you're always at Tahoe.
No, we don't do the spring conference. We focus on Tahoe and the CCCA.
Okay. So when you go to Tahoe, right? Every day that's there is food for everybody for free. Mm-hmm. Correct? Mm-hmm. Every day. Mm-hmm. Every day. When we go to the convention in the fall and in the spring, there's nothing but food every day. No one thinks anything of it, but we don't feed our kids. Are we hypocrites or not? That's all I'm saying, right? So if we took the money that was spent at those things and we gave them to the kids at Laney or anywhere, right, or any kid that needed it, it would go a long way to end food insecurity, right? And when I say that, but that's my own soapbox, and that gives me. But I got a great vehicle now.
Well, why can't kids in California athletes get scholarship money? Why can they do it in the NJCAA and you can't do it in a CCC?
I'm okay with us not giving scholarship money because remember, with the California Promise right now, we can get them free tuition, right? I just want to be able to feed a kid, right? That's all. I want to be able to, or if I find out they're living in their car, that I can go help find a place for them to live, right? I can help direct them into a place for them to be safe. That's all, right?
So, Coach, maybe it's a food stipend.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Simple as that. Like we have money. Every college now has food pantry money, right? The state does. But let us earmark some for athletes that we can get the right type of bars, protein, whatever they need to be able to perform, right? Simple things.
Instead of not that there's anything wrong with a Taco Bell or a Del Taco, but, fast food, we all know you can't eat that every day. Even with your metabolism as it is at that age, you're just going through it, and you're good for the most part, but eventually that's going to catch up with you and you're not going to be able to perform at your highest level. So Coach, I love this, and we could talk about this stuff all day.
We got to get out.
Hey, so in the show, and in case you guys haven't seen it, you need to watch LastChanceU. You also need to subscribe to the Unity is Community podcast. But in there, they were in a classroom and we're talking to I think it was Miss Juanita. Is that it?
Yes.
And she mentioned that the players are PPs.
Yes.
Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I think, in her mind, she said that our athletes were pampered, right? And then look at what their description of pampered was. It was because you have coaches that care about you and check up on you. Yeah, they're pampered. I check on, but I also check on other students that aren't athletes that I run into that are in my badminton class, for instance, right? So I've been checking up on kids for 40 years in Oakland. So that's no different than what I've done. But that's what she said. She didn't say that we gave them free things. She said that we checked on them. We made sure they got their work done. We made sure that there was tutoring available. Yeah, that's what we do at Laney. We make sure you have tutors. We provide individual tutors. We provide group tutors. We get you the help that you need to be successful, right, in life. And if that's pampering, I'll take that every day, right? But to care for someone is not pampering in my mind. That's a human rights deal, right? Either you do or you don't, right? And we care for people. And I hope to show that John Bean and Laney care for people. If we did that,
without a doubt, Coach, without a doubt. That PP part, I'm not going to say what the other word is, but it's hilarious. And you just need to watch. Let me put it that way. Okay. The town.
Yes, sir.
What is that? And what does that
Oakland,
mean
baby.
to you?
Oh man, that's pride, man. Everybody talks about the towns, all about town biz, right? We do something different here than anybody else in the country does, right? We have pride in what we have. We have pride in that how we grow up. We believe in ourselves. We're gritty. No one cares about us, right? You got San Francisco across the way, the city, right? Glamorous. And the town is where the workers are. Well, that's great. We're made up of workers. As Dame Lillard, every day he puts up 45 or 50 on them fools, what he thinks about the town, right? Marshawn, what does he think about the town? And it's a mentality that, that we were overlooked or we were looked down upon, but we don't care because we make it our own and it's special. The best food in the Bay Area comes out of Oakland now, right? The best restaurants, right? The music scene is out of Oakland now, right? And so that's okay. That Oakland is phenomenal city of less than 500,000, I think. And yet look at the number of superstars that come out here. And I'm not talking just athlete, the Pointer Sisters, right? MC Hammer, right? Rappers, Too Short. It doesn't matter. It's just so many folks come from here and that are just talented because of the grit, the perseverance that occurs, but also the love that occurs in this town. Sheila E., Pete Escovedo.
What did it mean to the community when the A's beat the Giants in '89? Of course, there was an earthquake year, so there's that. But
people were rocking. And look at now, right? A's are rocking right now, and the Giants are struggling. The Warriors. This is the best thing. When the Warriors won their first championship with Steph and them, right? They did the parade. Ended right next to Laney, so I was a part of that because I'm.
Oh, really?
We're at one of the emergency sites, so if there was ever something happen, I'd have to open up the gates in the field so helicopters can land, and so I'm there. And I'm looking out, and I'm looking at 1 million people around the lake, cheering on close to 1 million people.
Wow!
It was phenomenal. That doesn't count the people that were lined up, right? But the Warriors won because they represented the town. Right, they had our mentality of Oakland. Now they're over to the city. Now they're horrible.
Hey, Coach, I don't blame you. The Chargers left. They went to LA.
The who?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I understand. I understand the feeling. Last thing, Coach, and this is going to be a tough one, but I got to ask it. You've had a lot of amazing players. If you had to pick one that's your favorite over the years, who is it?
Well, that's easy. They're all my favorites.
All right. Now we're getting political. All right.
There's just so many. There's so many folks that you just look at and you can't pick because they're just like your own child, right? You said you have a daughter. You just have one? You have one child or two, three? How do you
I have
pick
2 girls. Yeah.
How do you pick the favorite? On one day, one's more favorite than the other, right? Because I have 2 the same, right? But ultimately, they're all there, and you can't.
Okay. Let me ask this in a different way.
Okay.
Who keeps in contact with you the most? Like, who's always, hey, Coach, what's going on? Is there 1 or 2 guys, that reach out more than others?
No, they all do. I mean, it's so funny. My wife just goes nuts sometimes, right? I mean, Kevin Parker, Adam, Jarris, Marvell, Sakai, Derek, Diegler, they're with me every day. Tania was a 100, 200 champion in the OEL, I mean, in the state, right? They're just, Kanika, I mean, she babysit our kids I mean, there's just so many. I can't, it's just Paul and Pew. I mean, there's just so many of them. Kurt. I mean, I just can't. Mimi, you just can't name them because they're all there, and they all come through when you need them. Like if you make a phone call, you need something or something's going on, they respond right away, just like I do for them right away. So yeah, CJ, I mean, he just overcame some more. Sterling, it's crazy. I don't know how to pick. They're all good. I mean, I've had good relationships with folks.
Coach, when's your first game as of right now?
Yeah, I think February something. I don't even know. It's somewhere in the spring, right? I know we come back in January, supposed to start in February. I haven't put anything in my calendar because I know it's fluid, right? So
sure.
It was so sad seeing the ones say first day of practice because, I had my calendar all laid out. So this time I chose not to put anything for the 2021 season yet because I know it's going to change.
Wow. Yeah, well, it is what it is. We got to make the best of it and kind of see what happens. Well, Coach, I could literally talk to you. I got like 10,000 more questions, good. But I want to say thank you for joining me today here on the Unity is Community podcast. It's super fun. Love chatting with you. You're one of those people that provides a lot of interesting and valuable information, and we couldn't be more thankful to have you here today. Best of luck going forward. Hopefully we see you in Tahoe this coming year. Yeah. I'm sure that'll be back on. I hope. I don't know. Hopefully your season goes well. The show seems like it's kicking butt. And if you guys have not seen this season's Last Chance U, go check it out. Laney College, the town, Oakland. Coach John Beam and his staff and his players. It's just amazing how they put it together. Coach, thanks again.
You got the Mesa colors on your backdrop, huh?
Yeah, a little bit.
In my office, there's a Mesa helmet too. They showed it, but they didn't show it in the show. They took pictures of it, so I got my helmet. I'll look forward to California Canopy, being a great sponsor for Laney moving forward. You stay safe. It's been a talk to you. Take care.
Yeah, it's such space. Thank you, Coach. Have a good day. All right.